We will then, I think the video is already going. That's great. Super. All right. Well, my name is Mark Michelson. I am a market researcher, and I have been in the market research business as an entrepreneur with my own companies since '84, right after I graduated. We will then, I think the let me stop the, that's great. There we go. That was an echo of my recording. So within the context of market research, I've seen the industry go from, we used to not call it customer experience design. It was stuff like product design, building and store design. So things like we would design museums and hotels and shopping stores, centers, and stores themselves, and displays, and then products themselves, and the packaging that would go into that. That's the kind of research I did for years. The other type of research that we did for years was things like, how are we doing? How are we doing? How can we improve type of research? This is rear mirror type of research. In other words, looking into the past and saying, how was your experience? Also, we did a lot of mystery shopping. And mystery shopping is an audit where you train the person that's going to do the shop on what to look for. They may or may not be an actual customer. Questions like how likely would you be to come back, or things like how likely would you be to recommend, even because it's just not proper. But that's my background very shortly. I've been in research since '84. I've worked in qual and quant, and about 6 years ago or so, I started putting together these CX talks and now CX forums events, because I really like people and I like to hang out with birds of a feather. That's really bottom line. And trying to not lose money in the process of doing it. Not trying to make a killing, just trying not to lose money. But I have a little poll to kick us off. Then I want everyone to go around and introduce yourself as we go, before we kick off things here. So I have 2 questions on my poll, and I'm going to launch both of these. So if you will, go ahead, and it should be on your screen. I don't know how this works. The first time I've done a poll on here. Can everyone see the poll?
Yes.
Great. Okay. I see it's starting to be answered. So go ahead. There's just 2 questions here. One is, how would you rank your knowledge of CX data? And give me context on how to speak to you. And then, what's the most valuable data for CX? And then we're going to spend some time on the answer to number 2. Specifically, we're going to cover that today. Someone here could earn a doctorate. Lovely. You want to help me with this? Okay, it looks like we're getting a lot of folks here. That's great. We're getting 17 of 17 responses now. That looks like that's it. Great. Let me just save here. And I'm going to save the poll. It looks like we're done with it. So there we go. Can everyone see the responses?
No.
No one can see the responses. Okay, let me share the results. Okay, now, can we see them now?
Yes.
Gosh, I'm learning something new on LinkedIn or on Zoom every day too. Okay, let's look at the responses. Little to none. There's 5 of us. I'll try to make sure that we keep this to a level of understanding that we all can get without being pedantic. Okay. I know enough to be dangerous, and that I think is probably the biggest area for people. We were recording this, maybe you can see it later. So enough to be dangerous, and it can be dangerous. It really can. If you start following one path of knowledge without really validating it or knowing what you're doing, it could be very dangerous. I'll give you an example. Coca-Cola, a long time ago, they decided to change their formula. And so they said, hey, we're going to introduce a new Coca-Cola, and it's going to be new Coke. New Coke, yay, everyone's excited. They didn't ask the question because they were afraid to. They didn't ask, what would you do if we took away your Coca-Cola? And that turned out to be one of the biggest marketing snafus ever, because they were kind of afraid to ask the question. They knew just enough to be dangerous. They knew that they had the taste test and things going on, but they didn't really ask, what if we took away something? And so you got to be a little bit dangerous out there, but you got to also keep an open mind that your answers may or may not be the best answer. Okay. And there's a lot of things around cognitive biases that are built into survey design and other types of things that you want to just keep aware of. So with the next valuable, what is the most valuable data for CX? And that's really interesting. So most of you are saying both, and that's probably true. I would say, the qual quant, it maybe depends on whether you're left brain or right brain oriented. Sometimes we have to speak to both sides in order to make a decision. And there's also emotional things and things that we don't even think to ask that might come up in qualitative. It depends is always a good consulting answer. So whenever you're asked something as a consultant, you say it depends, and then you lay out the case for why it depends. So we're going to delve into this now, and let me just get my screen going here. I got to do a few things here to make it work. First would be share my screen, and then I'm going to expand that out so you can see everything. So let's see here. This, that, and then this one. Okay. All right. So everyone should be able to see the screen now, and we have here this is, I'm going to stop the sharing here for this poll since we're done with that. All right. So when you're creating an experience, it's a lot different from improving the experience and monitoring it. And so what we see happening here in the world of CX all the time are things like customer experience being such a broad thing that we don't really know which metrics go where. Customer experience really does cover the entire brand experience. If you look around the room, just don't mind all the X's on the left for a minute, but look around wherever you are right now. Everything you see that was man-made started out as someone's dream, someone's desire, someone's need to create some kind of experience there. It could be the lamp, and they designed the lamp a certain way. It could be your coffee cup. It has a certain appeal to you. It could be the wall and even the texture or color of paint. That, believe it or not, is an entire industry, the color of paint. So when you think about what is a brand experience, it really is everything that goes into that physical product or that service, because it doesn't always have to be physical. It could be very much a service. And it's all of those things together. And I still get asked, quite often, what's the difference between, say, UX and CX? Or what's the difference between, XM and CX? Well, this little graph here kind of puts it in context a little bit. UI design, user interface design, is a part of UX design. UX design is a part of product design with a service overlay. And then even within product design, they don't have it here, but I would think that then comes the channel design, if you will. Channel design could be a store, or it could be a website, or anything else. It could just be an app, for instance. So that channel design, I think, is also something that could be included in here, because how are you going to get those products and services, right? And then you have the total customer experience. So, it's been a challenge, really, when you look at all these X's and everyone going after another new X every day, exactly which metrics work where. And so that's what I'm going to try to show you here. And at least my dividing line for that is trying to decide, what's on the path to purchase versus what happens after the purchase. Okay. So within, you guys may have seen this particular graph before, that customer journey being an infinite loop, and that first of all we have this thing called ZMOT, and that's number one on the graph. It's also known as a need. ZMOT stands for zero moment of truth. So we deal a lot with moments of truth in customer experience, and the zero moment of truth is that first inkling that I need something. I'll give you a really concrete example. My tire just blew out on my car. and I need a new tire. Okay, that was my zero moment of truth. Damn, I got a flat tire. It's got a thing in it. I got to get a new tire. So what do? I have to go out and I have to find out where can I get a tire? What kind of tire do I have? And where's the cheapest place I can get it? And the least amount of effort on my part, right? So I have to go out and research the market and do things like that. So all of that research part there is can be researched. We're going to research how people research. I know it sounds redundant, but it's a thing. Then comes the selection criteria. What happens? What would I go through? What's in my mind? What brands am I considering? What kind of features are most important to me? Is it going to be wet pavement handling, off-road handling? Is it going to be something like longevity? Is it 80,000-mile tire? Or is it a 30,000-mile tire? Is it going to be cost that drives my final decision? Is it going to be there's a sale going on? So all of those criteria that influence the purchase are things that can be researched. But all of that is before anything is sold or bought. Okay. So that whole buy and sell path to purchase stuff versus what happens on after I purchase it. After I purchase it, I get the thing. And how is that? I had to drive to the place, they put the tire on my car, right? Keeping it in that example. So I received the thing and they send me they give me a card actually when you go to get your tire. They give you a card that says, please give me an 8 or 9, no, an 8 or higher, or 8, 9, or 10, because 7 is fail. And now they have been taught, they being the service people at tire stores and car dealerships and just about every business that uses NPS, have absolutely been taught to influence that by saying, hey, give me a 9 or 10 because everything else doesn't count. And I actually have a few cards I received from companies saying that. So it makes me question some of that data, but you still need to understand, did I receive the product as expected and on time and in good condition? Next comes the use of the product. And here, this type of research is a little different. A lot of CX people kind of give it up here and they say, well, I just want to know, are they loyal? Are they going to come back? But what are they doing with my product? That is something that needs to be understood. When you deal with in-home user testing of stuff, or you deal with stuff like even B2B, you do a ride along with someone making sales calls, right? That's how you really get to know what is happening with a product. And to give you an example, we do a lot of things with home design and home repair. These are things you don't purchase very often. So what is that like when you get a ceiling fan and you go to install that? A lot of people don't know how. I don't know how, and it's certainly confusing to me to think about trying to put a ceiling fan in. But that is part of the product experience. It's part of the whole customer experience as well. The next area here would be to maintain that thing. Again, I've got, when you think about maintaining stuff, there are certain things you have to maintain on an ongoing basis. For instance, your dishes. You got to clean those pretty often. Is your dishwasher doing what it needs to do? What else do you need to do to maintain that good state of being that you have? And then finally, and then the product or service. Is it something as a one-off, or is it something that is going to be bought on a continuous basis and used? Like I go to the grocery store every week, it seems. Well, almost every day. Everyone goes every week, I think. You finally have recommend. That's where almost all of CX research has hung their hat on NPS and said, will you recommend us? And I'm just going to tell you a tad about my knowledge of NPS and what my own view is on it. I think it's a good measure overall. I think it's been misused widely. Because of the front line saying, give me a 9 or a 10, and people just get focused on a number instead of what is behind the number. I think NPS with a follow-up question, how could we improve? How can we do better? Why did you give us a 7? Those types of questions are going to tell you more about what to do than just the number itself. Now, where did NPS come from and why do we need it? Loyalty is kind of one of those things that's hard to measure. People a lot of times won't say directly, yes, I intend to come back. I will give you more money. They just don't say that. Just like they don't say in an election, yes, I'm going to vote for candidate X because I just don't want to tell you who I'm voting for. And that became a thing, actually. Back in the 60s, they started figuring out that people just weren't going to tell them who they were going to vote for. I don't even know that they really know how to do it yet, but it came out of political polls. NPS did. And the idea for at the polling on a political poll was to use projective. A projective is giving an answer that's not necessarily your own answer, but there are some subconscious things going on. The question for the political poll was simply, who do you think your neighbor is going to vote for? And the answer to that was closer than who do you think you're going to vote for? Who will you vote for? When you did it over, thousands of people across the country, the answer was closer when they said who will your neighbor vote for. So NPS kind of said, let's turn that on our head and say, okay, well, how likely would you be to recommend this product service on a scale of 0 to 10? It's a projective because it's not saying, that you would necessarily be loyal, but it's saying you would recommend, right? And I don't know if that's the best loyalty measure out there. I think, well, my own personal view is there is no one perfect weight or measurement. There is not one. It's always best to get several when you do something in research. So let's move on here, and I do want to spend some time having you guys introduce each other too. We do have about an hour left, which is great, and I'm going to do that in just a second. But I want to give you just a real quick overview of all the types of CX data sources that I'm familiar with. And I looked at the Book of Knowledge, which is CXPA's new publication, and they have a nice little smaller graph, if you will, that has different metrics in it. But I don't know if it goes as deep as this one. And if I'm missing some, I probably am. If you know of some, by all means, let me know as we're going here. But on the voice of customer side, what we call VOC, there's big blocks of be qualitative and quantitative, and the qualitative stuff is all over the idea of actually having a conversation or observing behavior. So when you have a conversation with someone, you can capture that either by transcript these days. We used to have everything transcribed anyhow, but it was off of tapes in focus group facilities. Now, instead of having to go to focus group facilities to do in-depth interviews and focus groups, we can do things online very easily. It's been proven. I've been doing focus groups online for well over I'd say since 2020. No, since 2000. Not 2020. Since the internet came around. Bulletin boards, focus groups, all that can be done online nowadays. It's easier now with focus groups and a group of people on Zoom than it used to be. It used to be quite difficult because we didn't have the speed of transmission. Mobile ethnography is a real cool thing. It has to do with diary keeping. So everyone has a mobile phone, it seems, and using that phone to capture your journey along the way, that's semi-structured around the idea of, show me a video of what you're using now. Great. Now show me a picture of what you would aspire to. And so that way you can sort of understand what they're dealing with now and what kind of vision they have that they would like to have. You can do that very easily with mobile ethnography because people can capture things on photos and videos and voice wherever they are. Video survey responses are also quite possible. You can just go online and give answers. There's a lot of those going around with Loom and some of those other types of apps that are out there. And then finally, just roundtable discussions. Grab some customers, set them down, take them to lunch, and have a chat, right? That's all qualitative. On the quantitative side, we have voice of customer metrics, and they are the Net Promoter Score that I just mentioned. CSAT is probably the biggest one out there. That's really for things like product, for things like, how satisfied are you with the the temperature of your pizza. I don't know, things like that. So it's going to be things that are tangible and are measurable, but they're still subjective to a large degree. The scales for SATs are generally a little bit smaller scales than, say, a net promoter. Net promoter is a 0 to 10, and they only use the top two box to determine it, minus the detractors and all that good stuff. The CSAT's a little more simple. And I can talk all day about preferences around Likert scales. And a Likert scale, really simply, is on a scale of 1 to 5 or 1 to 4, how satisfied or happy or whatever are you with something. I prefer, personally, I prefer making them make a decision between a neutral. If you give them a 5-point scale, they're going to, a lot of people will select the neutral. And I tend to think people, given an opportunity to have to go one way or another, they will then tell, a little bit more about it. And you might get a few complaints, hey, there's no neutral. But I don't know if everyone's always neutral. I think having a 1 to 4 scale suits me. It's easy for a lot of people to deal with. It's the same with smiley faces and things. Um, I got to tell you, the funniest SAT score I think I've seen out there. I've seen a lot when I've traveled and flying and stuff. But in airports, they have this button you can push as you leave the restroom. All right, you can push it with your hand. Is it happy, sad, or whatever? Happy, medium, or sad. There's three buttons. And I don't know who's pushing those buttons after they leave the restroom, but I don't know that I want to. Because it's just not something I want to touch as I'm leaving the restroom. But that's another way of getting a SAT score out of your restroom experience. The customer effort score, that is really something that's a lot in call centers as well as time to resolution. When you're dealing with closed loop things or if I call up, my cable carrier and my cable's not working, right? And I get some person on the line, I will help you. Personally, I will help you. I'm a genius. I'm going to help you out. I'm going, great. So, my dealing in that experience is I'm rating that person and their effort. And the question goes like this. Would you choose to use this person again? Would you choose to do this again? How well was your problem resolved? Okay, and those are customer effort scores. You may have to expand on that some, but generally it's in call center and or in areas where there is a resolution. Time to resolution has to do with closed loop, and it's something you can ask people, like, was it done in a timely manner? But again, it's another metric that also can be operationalized. And then journey analytics, they're all the rage. Journey analytics basically use CSAT scores and CES scores in a touch point journey map. So the next session we're doing on here, the next workshop, is going to be about how to apply these metrics to a map and how to make continuous improvements by having and monitoring and viewing those touch point and transaction data. All right. Now, on the other side of the equation here, on the right hand side here, we have voice of the employee. It's huge. And whenever you do employee feedback, you can do it in person. You can do qualitative and quant very easily. But within the employee research, it's really important to give them an option to answer anonymously. Okay. And that's because they may fear for their job and they may not want to share bad things about their boss or coworkers. But it's really important to give them an opportunity to do that. And there are ways to do that. You can have people, using a third-party platform, a survey platform or something. They can respond without being known, and they have to have like a link to do that versus it being tied to their email. Um, but they can also go into even like a website on your own site. You could have a a chat center or like a suggestion box. Remember the old suggestion boxes? You could drop some piece of paper in there. Similar to that, you can have a suggestion box where it can be anonymous and maybe even come up with your own name for that. But it's better to do it there than see it out on social media. I'll tell you that. But you definitely need to have voice of the employee in dealing with customer experience. Um, Analytics. Now, this is not necessarily sought after. In other words, we don't ask the question to do this. It's already there, right? So we have things like customer relationship management and transaction data coming together. These are operational data. These data can be brought in and compared to your own voice of customer sentiment data. But voice of customer sentiment data doesn't always have to be asked. Okay, and the good example of that would be an online or someone that just sends you a letter, right? What is that? What is a comment card value versus, say, an answer to my survey? You got to keep an open door, just like the suggestion box. You have a complaint box, things like that, and that is largely online and on social media. It's in reviews and it's in other things. I know I have another area on social a little bit later, but that's where I'm talking here. Customer analytics can come from. Text and sentiment analysis as AI tools. Whenever you're dealing with thousands, hundreds of thousands of open-ended comments, it's impossible to make sense of this on an ongoing basis. So that's where you have these AI tools that come into play that can then take a block of text or billions of blocks of text and say, this is what they're saying in general. And that has to be contextual by nature, because the word good or bad or quality or any of those words alone don't mean anything. You want to know what that means. Dig a little deeper. It's good quality or it's bad quality. Those are contextual. Operational data, again, if you take XM and what that means, and I know that our friends at Qualtrics have been doing a lot with XM through the years, the idea is experience management. So you take operational data and voice of customer and CRM all together. That makes up an XM dashboard, if you will. And some people think, oh, good, I got my dashboard done, I'm all set. Well, that's just the beginning. It's like saying, geez, I just bought a new car, it's got a dashboard, I'm not going anywhere, it's done. No, you got to learn how to drive the thing. And that means using the data to make changes and do the things you need to do as a CX professional along the way. It doesn't stop there. There's digital UX. We can monitor everything, every click you make, we'll be watching you. And that's true. It happens all the time, and you can measure and monitor everything someone does online. And there's a lot going on in that world. That's basically what all of social media is built around, is dealing with the digital UX and the user experience and understanding the analytics behind it, so they can understand what customers are attracted to or not. And then I just mentioned online reputation, and I'll touch on mystery shopping briefly. I see my friend Juan is on here from Puerto Rico. Mystery shopping is a thing. It has changed quite a bit over the years. Largely, it's become commoditized, in my view. But I think it still has a really valuable place within CX research, and that's because it's an audit. You're training shoppers to go and look at something and make sure it's the way it was designed. That could be anything from a sign in a store to the way it's merchandised, to the store condition, to the people at the store and doing what they're trained to do. It's not a Big Brother thing if you take Big Brother out of the loop, but it's kind of cool because it is the only research method I've ever seen that can actually change behavior of employees and in turn increase sales. And that's done through different types of incentive shops. For instance, I can do a shop, I'm just to toss it out, Ace Hardware or something like that, a hardware store. And you say, okay, look, we're going to go shop the store, measure you on these, make sure everything's in place. But if you happen to say within these 3-month period, we're having a sale on batteries, those are the magic phrase, you get a bonus. It could either be on the spot or it could come right after in the form of a gift card. And what you do is, in order to change behavior, you have to actually market that and promote it to all the employees through signage, through buttons, through whatever, and say battery sale, and then the 3 months later you change it to light bulbs, so you can actually change behavior by doing this because there is an incentive tied to it. Okay, so I want to take a pause here just for a second. and have everyone introduce themselves here because we have about, I don't know, 50 more minutes or so. And I could certainly go into some more in-depth things here, but let me do this. Let me just turn this off for a second and come back here, and we're going to go around and introduce ourselves. So get your cameras ready to go. I'm going to be calling on names, and they're going across my screen a certain way. I'm sure they're going across yours a different way, but let's go from here. And I see some faces. Yay! Great. We're going to start off with ladies first. So Ishara.
Hello, hi, I am Ishar Rice, and I am one of the brand managers for Intellios. So I'm very excited to be here. I am in the beginning of learning about CX. So looking very forward to just kind of learn from the workshops that you all are doing today. And I really enjoyed the conference yesterday in person.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you were there. It was our first time in DC, and I was really pleased to see that we had a pretty good turnout there and really good
Mhm.
talks, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, Marissa. Hi.
Hi, I'm Marissa Levy. I work as a customer success manager at Ground Floor, and we're located in Atlanta, Georgia. So I'm calling in from there.
All right. I'm in Atlanta too. So got a nice day out there. Patty.
Hi, I'm Patty Soltis. I am in Tampa, Florida, and hello, Mark. You did an excellent job presenting. I learned a lot. I've been in CX a long time, and I love the way you just presented that. Thank you.
My pleasure. We still have more to go. This is just
I'm sticking around.
it's a halftime break. Get your popcorn and coffee. All right, let's see if I can get around some of these other folks that don't have cameras on. Let's see here. Heather, are you there?
I'm here.
Hi, Heather.
Sorry, no camera. I can't do
No
it.
camera. Okay, I totally get it. That's fine. Tell us about yourself.
So yeah, I'm Heather Healy. I'm located in the Boston area. I work for a company called SAIC, where we support government contracts for IT and services through air and space. Of course, Navy and Army can get in there too. So I started out in the 90s in product development, brand design, and marketing, and then moved more into consumer goods with big pharma and medical, and then transitioned into the government in the around 2010. And I've been with operations, IT support, and acquisitions, showing how we can, basically improve customer experience and make sure that our airmen and guardians get what they need, as well as how do we save money? How do we do this and save money, but make sure that they're clearly communicated with? So a bit well-rounded, but I've got like 25 years under my belt. We just didn't call it customer experience back then.
We sure didn't. I'll tell you. Did you get a chance to see Colt talk yesterday?
I did.
Yeah.
I know Colt, work with him as well. He
Yeah.
did this briefly as to what we're trying to do for our airmen and guardians so that they have the modern technology that they need. They can focus on the mission, and it's an exciting adventure that we're on.
So, for those of you who don't know who Colt is, he was one of our keynote speakers yesterday, and he is the global head of customer experience for the United States Air Force. And you might not think that that's needed, but they have 370,000 employees or something.
We have a lot of people.
Yeah, 170 airports. It goes on, but it's a huge operation. So thank you so much, Heather. Jamie.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. I'm Jamie Pryke. I am in Washington, D.C., although I had to attend virtually yesterday, unfortunately. So I missed the in-person presentations, but still got a lot out of it. I am new to client experience and customer experience in the roles by title. So I'm hoping to glean as much information to help me get started on my CX leadership journey.
Excellent. Thanks for joining. Okay, so I'll move over to some of the folks who have their cameras on now. Alex.
Hello, I'm Alex. I am also at Ground Floor. I'm one of Marissa's direct reports, and I am a customer success specialist and focusing on one of our secondary products that we offer.
Excellent. And are you in Atlanta as well?
No, I'm in Chicago.
Oh, yeah, awesome. Well, we do a Chicago event and an Atlanta event, so we'll be up there again next May in Chicago, and Atlanta is going to be April. Juan, hold on.
Hola, hi everybody. My name is Juan Charana. I'm in San Juan, Puerto Rico. I own a mystery shopping company and consumer research, and basically transitioning into full CX mode. I've been in the research and marketing business for some years, as you can tell by my hair, and hopefully learning from you guys through these webinars.
Excellent. All right, we're going to continue on. Let's see here. I've got Sandeep. You there? Oh, there he is. Hello.
Hey everyone, this is Sandeep. So I'm from India, and yeah, Mark, I'm loving your session, and I joined a bit late, but I'm continuing the session from here, and lovely meeting everyone over here.
Pleased to have you.
I have a past experience of around more than 8 years into CX industry, and yeah, there is a lot to learn still, being so much associated with this industry and the community. So it's great being part of this session.
It's a fun group. You know, they're more empathetic than most, I think. So,
Definitely.
let's see here. Tia, are you there?
I am. Hi,
Hi.
everybody. My name is Tia. I'm here in New York City. I'm the CX manager at Dandy, which is a digital dental lab. I have about now 20 years of experience in CX. I started my first job at 14 in a call center, and all through high school and college, and eventually now has led me here to always be interested in it. I found this here on LinkedIn, and I was really interested. My lane within CX, my CX organization is all about our team culture and employee experience. So I deal with a lot of qualitative data. And this is so far has been extremely enlightening. I'm hoping to get better at processing all kinds of CX data.
Awesome. Well, glad you're here. Catherine, are you there? Catherine? Catherine, going once, going twice. If you come back, let me know. Chelsea, have I hit you yet?
Hi, yes, I work with Marissa and Alex at Ground Floor, and we are in the customer success team, and I am in Bucks County, Pennsylvania.
Awesome. Welcome. And Dora, I'm not sure. Did I get you? My memory's about that of a squirrel these days.
No worries. No, I'm also with Ground Floor, so Marissa is my supervisor, and I have my coworkers here on the call. And I'm in New York City as well. So.
Awesome. I'm gonna have to learn more about Ground Floor. It sounds like you guys are getting in on the ground floor. I don't know. All right. Well, let me go back to my shared screen. Did I get everyone? Did I miss anyone? Like I said, my memory's not always good.
Mark, I can introduce Catherine. I
Okay,
think she
please.
stepped away. We actually work together.
Please
So Catherine is also one of the brand managers at Intelios. Again, Intelios is a healthcare nonprofit, and we certify healthcare professionals in ultrasound. And so I am the brand manager for the ARDMS side, which is for sonographers, and she's the brand manager for the APCA side, which is for physicians. And so we work together, and we're both located in the DC area.
Awesome.
Yep.
Was she there yesterday, or do you?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
She was there yesterday.
Today she had to go work.
Yeah, I know exactly. Right.
Right.
The balance.
I hear you. You know, it's not easy. It's not easy fitting in time to learn, you know, but we're going to carry on here. I've got a little bit more to go. And so this is from a survey that was done, I saw on Business Wire, and this was just from last year. And so what does your organization currently do user research on? All right, that was the topic. And by far, customer needs were the number one. Given this is kind of a user research thing, I saw, you know, websites come in number two. And then this journeys thing, you know, how many of you heard the word journey used much other than to represent the band like more than 5 years ago? I never heard anyone call these things journeys. It was like, path to purchase, buying something. But now everything's a journey. It seems like whatever you do is a journey. I got a journey to go to the bathroom. So it's, whatever the journey offline and online is, I don't know. But I think it's because everyone was told they need a journey map. Okay. As we heard yesterday, it's pretty expensive artwork unless you put it to use. That's just what I think about it. But journey maps are wonderful if they're used. Then you have stuff like product usability. This has nothing to do with service, but again, it's the user research. But I thought it was fascinating to me to see customer needs, journeys, and things like behavior and things like that coming up as some of the stronger things. So how do we go about understanding a customer need? A short sideline story here. I was once, on the road doing focus groups with a pretty fun client, and we went to some bar out in California. I think it was on the dock there at anyhow. It was out on the water, and so we're having a good time. And someone asked us, "Hey, what do you guys do? You're having way too much fun." And I said, "Well, we figure out what people want, and then we give it to them." He was like, "What are you, pimps?" I thought that was the funniest because in large part, we do have to ask, and we do have to ask people questions about what they want, what they need, and what they're doing in order to get there. So the idea of understanding customers, then once you do have an understanding of the customers, you create something and you want to know, is this what you're looking for? Is that what you're looking for? Should it be a different color, a different texture? What is it? And sometimes we build these things around things that aren't always intended. And I'm going to go into that in depth here in just a minute. But these include testing. Emerging stuff includes testing reactions to marketing content, or which phrase do you like better? What's better to understand? How people will respond to stuff. So you first understand what they need, then you create something, and then you go out and see what they think about you created, right? It's not that hard, but you have to have an iterative process to do that. So in order to get there, you have to sort of understand what are they thinking in the wild. If you're dealing with global projects, and I noticed a couple of you here from other countries and different cultures, it's really fascinating because sometimes a company might want to say something that comes out translated completely different. Look at pretty much any menu in China that's made for Americans, and you'll see all those misinterpretations. But to give you a more concrete example, I had a client, Swiss Hotel, a long time ago, and they had this tagline they wanted to test. So they flew me all over the world, staying in wild places all over the place, to ask basically this question. Their whole tagline was based on a passion for perfection, right? It tested okay in most of the countries, but Germany, they're like, that sounds like it's, you're being obsequious or slaving to something that's unobtainable. Why would you do that? And it became even more evident as we were going that was just not what they wanted to have happen in their communication. So they had to actually change up their language of the similar phrase for different countries. I guess that was worth it to them in the long run. So when you have these types of information coming in, let's see, like I said, you do all this research before, and that stuff includes designing the product and all the iterative stuff around that. It includes how you're going to communicate whatever it is you're selling or doing. Because if you don't communicate, there's chances of someone buying are almost nil, even if it's a simple sign on the road. I've got a client right now that's got propane tanks out in Arkansas, in the middle of nowhere, and they're doing refill services. And we asked a survey question, said, do you refill your tank or do you exchange it? And most people are like, I exchange it. We're like, well, why don't you refill? And the biggest answer, we didn't know you could. We don't know where to do it. So a simple sign on the road that says, get a full tank. It refills better than exchange. It's something real simple, right? It's harder than you think to be simple. Then there's all the research afterwards, right? How did we do? How are we going to do better? Would you recommend us? I always loved Tom Peters, who was an older consultant back, I guess, in the 70s, 80s. And he had a quote that said basically, what gets measured gets done was his one quote. And so you measure those things that you can actually change. Don't measure things you really can't do much about. It's good to know, but it's not necessarily huge importance to what you're going to do because you can't do much about it. So you want to ask, things that you can make a change about. Don't just ask, was it fun, or something like that. Now, I mentioned the unintended design. And so what happens here on design research is we can ask a question 100 ways to Sunday and maybe not get the user experience right. Okay, because we're thinking we want them all to go to the left. And the best example of that is IKEA. IKEA makes you go a certain way around the store in order to get to the whatever the heck that little sausage is they have at the end of the maze, right? So you got to think about that design. Is that the way you like to shop? And a lot of grocery stores used to do that too. It was like a one-way path, right? And then they finally kind of opened that up a little bit. So what is it designed to do versus what is it people want to do? If you can try to observe the way people naturally behave, it's a lot easier than trying to make them go down some sort of false path. Be like water. It's a good phrase to think of here. The least resistance and where people want to go, obviously over towards this metropolitan area, they don't want to have to walk all the way down to the corner in order to make the right, right? So, why was the thinking here? Simple observation. And then again, research sometimes is see what everyone else has seen. I've been accused of being obvious more times than I can imagine. And it's a compliment in some ways. In other ways, you're saying, okay, well, yeah, everyone sees that. Everyone knows that, And other times I get arrows in my back for bringing the truth to my clients. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to know that, right? Because it makes us look bad. It makes my boss look bad. But going in with open eyes and just trying to eliminate your biases if you can. Now, when you do design research, there's a lot of different people to talk to. And you don't walk into design research just ambling around the world without a rudder. You sort of have an idea of what you're going to do, and that's based on your objectives. So whenever we have a study, whenever I get a study comes across my desk, I basically was like, all right, what are the business objectives? What are you trying to do? What are you going to make a decision about if you knew the answer? And so you look at those kind of things, you say, okay, well, if it's qualitative in nature, that means we need to talk to these people. What are we going to talk about? What are the questions we need answered in order to make a decision? And that would be things like features, functionality, what criteria is there? Another case study example, back in the late 80s, I had a role with my company. All of a sudden, we were asked to do a car dealership redesign for Ford. And so we did the dealership redesign, and then immediately, like, it was kind of funny, but it was like the other manufacturers found out we were doing it. And so we had studies going on with Ford, GM, and Nissan at the same time. And the basic premise was this. It was a very simple premise, but it was hard for them to understand at the beginning. And that was they had created car dealerships to sell cars. Now that sounds logical. That sounds like what they should do. In effect, they had built everything around the salespeople and a shiny, bright future, right? So the salespeople are all in there in their comfortable chairs and their tables and their awards and family pictures on the wall and the computer facing toward them if they had one. And yet the customer has these two little crappy chairs on the other side of the table, and they're forced into this cubicle and their kids and whatever. And, that's the way it was done. We actually took the point of view and said, let's create an environment where people can buy cars instead of being sold to. And that shifted the whole idea of what we were doing for design research around on its head. And we said, Wow, people don't like square desks. They like round tables because everyone's equal. They all want to see that computer screen. So let's make it easy for everyone to look at. Let's put kiosks in there. They want car information there. They want service to be given the same attention as sales. So we put service right up front on the front of the building instead of in the back in some dingy, alleyway. But essentially, it starts with the idea of we can do better. What's missing here? And was it designed around selling or was it designed around buying? Right? Really simple, but hard to figure out. But this kind of stuff, it can be, all of these data points can go into a pretty good sized matrix to give you an idea of what is it we're going to make and what is it going to look like and what kind of materials. For instance, the car dealerships that we did, it happened to be Lexus, Infiniti, and Saturn, right? Each one of those car dealerships were being brand new brands in the late 80s. And each one of those had different kind of markets to go after. A Lexus buyer is nothing like a Saturn buyer at all, unless they're buying a car for their kid. But, Lexus, we had to have this concrete fascia on the outside to make it look permanent. We had leather chairs and walnut, furniture and all this really sort of upscale, clubby looking stuff, right? Whereas at the Infiniti showroom, it was almost entirely glass and it was like plasticky feel and it was less expensive feel to the thing. And Saturn even worse, but Saturn didn't survive it. But you understand those things, the kind of atmosphere you're in and the kind of room you're in really do affect your mood and your temperament for buying something or feeling comfortable. So moving onward here to journey mapping. Now, as CX people, I hope everyone here is familiar with the journey map. This is for people who might not know what they are. But essentially, it does start with that moment of ZMOT, zero moment of truth, all the way through to consumption and beyond. As a matter of fact, I think a journey map should be more close to the infinity loop than a linear map. But most moments of time are linear. So I decide, I travel, I experience, I return. So this is a really simple process of going to a movie, right? There's not a whole lot of stuff except, I'm going to go. I like the movie so much, I'm going to buy it so I can watch it over and over. Or I'm going to take friends to the movie or something like that. That would be the only real loop in this example. But it is informed by qualitative and quantitative data. So whenever I'm doing a map, I start off with talking with management, and then I talk with employees, and I understand what they're trying to do and what kinds of things they have in place. So you can get really elaborate with maps, and you can also go real simple. But the idea is once you understand what those critical touch points are or moments of truth, then you can have ways to measure them or not. So the qualitative is used to help design the map. It tells me what's most important to management and what's most important to customers at the very beginning. Otherwise, I'm just guessing that they maybe like the mousetrap that I made, and I'm not paying attention to the bait. Maybe they like strawberries instead of cheese. I don't know. So the idea is once the map is done, then you can have touch points to measure and monitor ongoing. Are those touch points performing as you design them to? And again, at 1 o'clock, we have my friend Brett Sharp and Jim Anderson are going to talk a lot about how do you include those in journey maps. I encourage you to join that if you'd like. On the next area here, NPS, I've talked about it ad nauseum, but NPS is pretty much the 9s and 10s are all that matter. And then you minus out all these detractors and you end up with your NPS score. Again, it's more important to ask why in some way. And if you can be more direct with the why instead of just why, something like how can we improve? How can we do better? Ask that of detractors. And one thing I think is happening as a trend with NPS in general is I find that a lot of people are more focused on the 9s and 10s than they are the other numbers, where I think you're going to learn more from your detractors and maybe your passives than you will from your promoters. It's nice to know that you like us. It's nice to know that you're going to recommend us, but I'm going to learn more from talking to people who don't, that we're not happy. And maybe that way I can go over there and make a change to whatever's not working for them. The CSAT score, again, it could be any number of scales. This scale here looks like a 7-point scale, which would have a middle. I guess that's a middle point. I don't spend my day too much like that in the middle, but this is, on a scale of 1 to 4 is what I like. You can choose whatever fits within your own culture. In general, though, with scales, just like with temperature, they can get more important the higher you go. So some people are very selective with whether they give something a high rating, right? Just by nature, everything's middle or a little bit higher. So you want to make sure that you're not totally just yes or no. It's not a binary scale, but it doesn't overwhelm people with having to say, gee, on a scale of 1 to 1,000, how did I do? Because it may give you more color, but really, do you need that much more color in your decisions? I don't know. It would depend on what you're going after. The customer effort score is, again, an area that is generally done in call centers and things like that. How easy was it to get the help you wanted? How easy was it to buy something? How easy was it to solve your problem, right? So a lot of times this is used in a call center, but it can be applied on a past purchase thing as well. So how easy was it to install your ceiling fan? I don't know. I've never been asked that, but I think it would be important to know to the company that sells fans. I don't know about you guys, but I think it'd be important. Oh, I skipped one here. All right. So these are having to do with all these data are coming together into several different types of matrices or platforms. Okay. So a lot of the bigger companies out there, your Medallias, your Question Pros, your Qualtrics, etc. They're all trying to be let's say a Swiss Army knife of data. And the Swiss Army knife is good, but each of those components aren't necessarily working together. I've got a toothpick and a saw in my Swiss Army knife. I'm not going to use them together, right? But you think about it, you want these things to sort of come together in a way that makes sense. And in doing that, you can do indices and things like that, but what we have right now are these platforms. So you have customer relationship management. That's the oldest one. It's been around forever. And believe it or not, there's even some of these in Salesforce. They have their own survey, mechanism and stuff, but you can also track things in there about customer relationship beyond just data. So most CRM systems are focused on selling something. So they have last contact, what was sent, did the person open their email, whatever. So there's things like that have to do with funnel data. And it's all about moving people in this idea of there's a big audience, then we let them know that we exist, and then they get an interest, and then they go down all the way to the point where they buy something. That's funnel, right? I'm not a huge fan of funnel because I don't think people work that way in most things, but they do for bigger purchases. Like if you're buying a car, you're gonna probably go into a funnel. If you're gonna go to the grocery store and get some water, you're probably not dealing with a funnel, right? If you're dealing with a customer data platform, it's a little different in that it has the real-time data segment, and it personalizes those experiences at scale. So you take things like XM data, which is the experience management, which already combines operational data, and you combine that with things like comment cards or an IVR system that's at checkout on a register receipt, or maybe it has areas that are going to give someone notification. It could even be mystery shopping data within that. Okay. And so the idea is it's still sentiment data by large part. It's about the customer when it's customer data. It's not necessarily about product sales or the number of widgets we sold or things like that. It's mostly centered around what does the customer need, and with your MarTech stack, and that would be whatever you're using to market stuff. It could be an email program like SurveyMonkey, or it could be your website data. Okay, whatever that is that's measuring your MarTech, Google Analytics, for instance, you can combine that with your customer data platform. Next area would be where we are kind of now, and this is where a lot of the platforms are moving, and that's the sum of all data related to customer experience combined with operational data. And it's kind of funny to me because you take everything from customers to employees to the brand to the product to the sales. All of that goes into a dashboard of some type. And I remember creating these. We used to do a lot of shops at Walmart stores for optical. So we had to send people in to get eye exams, and in the process of getting an eye exam, they would have to buy some glasses. And so what I did for this company, Walmart, there was two of them actually, Walmart and National Vision. And so they asked us to manage all of their customer interaction. And at first we were like, wow, what does that mean? Well, we were just mystery shopping them at the time. And we said, okay, what other data do you have? And they had all these comment cards that would come in, just not any specific order. They were just there for people to take, or maybe they were given to them with their purchase. And there was no internet at that time, so they would fill this thing out and send it in, or they would call the call center, and people in the call center would talk to them, and they'd track and write down whatever it is they were talking about. And so these data would also go into a dashboard. So we took our mystery shop scores, we did quarterly surveys with a sample of people, and we also took the comment cards, and those three things together each could have a number ascribed to them. They were point based. Even the comment cards, we just basically gave them a positive, negative, or neutral. In other words, a person was thanking everyone, or maybe they were complaining. Sometimes they thank and complain at the same time. But we had to take those things and give them numeric values and enter them into a database. It was a relational database in order to have a dashboard that we gave our client. And they could have these three kind of monitors there to tell them what's going on. Well, they would have to turn on their computer and look at that screen in order to see that happen, right? And there wasn't a lot of internet, so we actually made a program for them to run, and it was basically run in Excel. So we'd send them this disk, once every a week or so, and they could keep up with it. Well, as things became more fluid with the web and such, it became easier to share other things like video. Hey, your customer just said this. The other thing that became really important is closed loop. And closed loop, the simplest explanation I have is it's making sure that if someone has a complaint about something, that someone takes responsibility for that, or it's assigned responsibility, and then when it's resolved. All right. So there's, in a platform like a customer experience management platform should have, and a CDP as well, it should have a way to notify whoever needs to know about whatever's going on. So in other words, if I have a breakdown at a store and they don't have product, or their cash registers aren't working, or there's not enough staff or whatever, and I've got 1,000 stores out there, I better make sure I know what's going on with all of my stores. And I need to inform the regional manager, the district manager, the store manager, second assistant manager to the donut maker, right? Whatever it is. I need to make sure I have their contact info so they're automatically given notification that something needs to be fixed now at that break point, right? So that's what these platforms are promising to do. And some are doing better than others, of course. And like anything, it's how you approach it and how you set it up. And one more thing on this is the funnel. Customers were sort of like, they were the meat we're after. It's like, let's trap them in this funnel, right? Instead of, hey, they're the center of what we do. It's a buying environment versus selling environment. Real simple, the flywheel versus funnel. Okay, so moving ahead. This dashboard that I mentioned, they have gotten better. This is a one. I can't really even tell you where it's from because I have no idea. Looks like just a basic view, right? But this is what the regional VP of Americas gets to see, right? And that most of these platforms are set up, they're stratified in views for only the view that is needed for that person. And that's good and it's bad. It's good and it's bad in a few ways. First of all, there's a lot more data that the higher ups are looking at. There may be 1,000 data points that add up to these graphs, versus if I'm a little further down the food chain, let's say I'm a store manager, I may only have 2 comments. 2 people filled out my survey at my store. And it's hard to make a decision with that, right? It tells me what's going on, but maybe they're just not participating. But again, you can segment your reporting and feed it to your audiences this way. But again, they have to go to this website to see it, right? Or are they being pushed? Are they given these data on a daily basis, or just when fires happen, right? Is CX a large insurance policy and alarm system, or what's going on with measurement on the back end? Yes, basically it is. And it's turned into this incentive program as well, with NPS scores being the primary and in many cases the only number that matters. And I think that's not a good spot and will change, because it should never be one point of view that determines what you're going to design or what people need. Within the idea of a dashboard, you can set these things up, and nowadays you can get a gazillion dashboards, and all of the platforms allow you to sort of customize your own view on them. But I do caution against just sending out data without a comment on what do you do about it. Because not everyone's going to have the skill set to look at this and say, well, is that good or bad? And does that mean, what's going on with this returns area over here, right? And the 66%, what's going on with that? Why are we getting so many returns? Well, this has a little bit of a comment down here on that, right? Your return policy needs to change. Your employees that I dealt with are absolutely rude. This happened more than once. I won't be returning. Okay, that's a clue as to what's going on with the returns area. So they actually just gave the returns person a bad review. And that means you probably need to do some training, or at least figure out what's going on in that area. And that's key to also after the fact, or every type of research you do after purchase is intended to understand, did it get delivered the way we intended it to? Did someone consume this the way, that we built it? If not, then we need to go back to the drawing board. And that's where, again, if you do a journey map study and it's got informed analytics, you can play a lot of what if games. What if we did this? Would it change things? What if we changed something along the way? And that's where innovation comes in. And that's where we understand the low-hanging fruit that we need to go change quickly, the bleeding wounds that we better stop or it's going to kill us, and opportunities for growth. And that's, again, the 1 o'clock session is going to cover a lot of that kind of stuff. How do you tie all these data into Journey Map for improving and enhancing the journey as you go? So I would strongly encourage you to attend that one at 1 o'clock. So what I'd like to do is open it up to everyone for some Q&A. Let me just close this out. And happy to answer any questions you may have. We got about 10, 15 minutes here, but we don't have to be here unless you have questions. Anyone? No? Gosh, I can't believe I was so thorough that I answered all of your questions about data and customer experience. That's wonderful. If you would like a copy of this, just write to me, and I'll be happy to send one back to you. I'll just put my email address here, and if you would like a copy. I've gotten to the point now, even with our events, if you were there yesterday, you may have heard me say, I think it's better to always write the author and ask for a copy of their presentation versus just having it available to every attendee. Some of the people who give presentations at our talks, at our CX Forums events, are using proprietary information. They don't want to share it. Other people do want to share it. And And we could just, lift everyone's stuff and put it out there. But I think it's with a small group like we have for CX forums, which is intentional, by the way. I think it's important for why not just reach out to the person and ask them directly. Hey, I really enjoyed your talk. Can I get a copy of your thing? We're looking at using it for X. That's helpful, versus just, hey, we've got all the presentations, come and get them. The other thing you will notice if you've done one of my events before, we talk a lot about metrics, and we talk a lot about data, and we talk about qualitative, and it's an ongoing conversation, and you can't change which brain you're in. I mean, if you're left brain or right brain, and unless you have a stroke or something, it's not going to change in your lifetime. So what happens is certain people are going to naturally be attracted towards quant data. Other people are naturally attracted towards qual data. Doesn't mean one's right or wrong. My biggest advice I can give anyone is always to try to incorporate at least a qual view and a quant validation or measurement, okay? And typical structure of a research study, we would start off with qual because there are no boundaries. There are no fixed questions. We can change questions on the fly. We can see something and take an inquiry on that. It's branched out logic. You got to go out and wander in the woods to see the leaves, and then we might have ideas. We might have something we say, hey, we think everyone in the world's going to want a purple car because everyone loves purple. And yet you go out and you make a purple car and no one buys one. You're like, why are people not driving purple cars? Well, that's where a survey might come in handy, but you got to ask the question. You got to ask the question properly. Not only would you buy a purple car, but what do you think of someone who drives a purple car? Think about that. There's not a lot of purple cars on the road. Yet
Hey, Mark, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, jump in.
It's just this is going back to my history as an analyst here that I'm going to ask this question. And it is that I think you did a really thorough job of describing all of this. But if you were to sum it up, especially for the people who are a little bit newer to CX, on where should they hone in and focus when they're first getting started with it, and maybe a couple key pointers on how to do that?
Yeah, I would say it depends on the role they're taking in CX, right? If they're just if they're a manager, they need to manage that function they've been hired to manage, right? And the data that comes to them through their organization, they need to take a good look at what already exists. You always start with what exists. Then you say, okay, if I knew the answer to something, or maybe along the way, after you immerse yourself in what exists at your organization and you've exhausted that, you may have questions from others. And so I would start asking others, what do you need to know in order to improve the experience or do your job or whatever it might be that's related to the customer experience function? What is missing in your toolkit, if you will, on the front line? You ask that of employees. What's missing? If you had an unlimited budget and a magic wand, what would you do, right? So I would start by asking those questions without thinking about a platform or which metric to use yet. Understand the culture, understand the way it's done around here, and look at what you have in place. Now, after you talk to everyone and you understand what's going on and what people want and need, then you can start saying, okay, I think it's important to do a little more in-depth study, or let's go and look closer at X, right? And that might be, it could be an innovation initiative around something that we have a big problem with returns. We better figure out what's going on. Oh, well, Bob down there, he's ready to retire. He's basically showing up for work. Not even there. He don't know how to use a computer. How come he's in returns? So you start digging in and try to do a research study. It could be as simple as that. And it could be as complex as saying, wow, we're going to move from using metal on our laptops to plastic. And what do you think about that? That's a huge implication of change, right? Your materials, your tooling, your factory processes, everything about it is a huge decision. And something like that, you definitely want to make sure you've got the right answer to, right? So that's when you say, okay, let's do a formal, bigger survey. Let's attack it from a lot of angles, make sure we got this right. And I speak from experience on that, and that I was doing Samsung refrigerators in a day where stainless steel, you couldn't really clean it on a refrigerator all that well. You get some fingerprints and smudges, you're done. So they were like, people like stainless steel look on appliances in their kitchens, but how do we solve that? And they actually did a plastic that looked just like stainless steel, and it had magnetic qualities, and it was better for a while. Same thing with computers. We did a study for Hewlett Packard years ago. The whole idea was, Apple's got these colorful computers all of a sudden, the iMacs when they came out, the real colorful ones. And Hewlett Packard got all jelly about it. And they're like, well, we need to have some color on our computers. So they flew me around the world to do, what color do you like best study, right? And, we could show them different things, but it was all over the board. I mean, Japan liked pearl colored stuff. In Germany, no, the UK, no, France. They like primary colors: bright blue, bright red, bright yellow. That's what the colors of their vacuums and their toasters were. In Germany, they wanted big, black, and blinking, lots of knobs, and it's crazy. So you're like, okay, well, what do we do? Well, we did find one common denominator, and that was something that looks like an appliance and is sturdy. And so at those days, this is the first laptops really came out, the first early desktops. We said, let's make it look metallic. And again, they were like, oh, it's going to mess with the frequencies. Our engineers aren't going to like this. It's going to, there's all kind of electronics going to blow up on you. We're like, no, that's what they want. So Hewlett Packard made plastic, metal looking computers for a while. Now they figured all that out. And of course, you can put that much electronics in your watch these days. But now they have almost every laptop is metallic. And you remember the days, and almost every other desktop is too. The old days, it was what, pewter, neuter pewter, grayish, color of bras. I don't know, whatever you want. It was just awful. So you don't know where to start. Always start by talking to people around you. Talk to your boss, talk to your coworkers, talk to the employees. Observe customers, see what they're doing. If you have a retail place, you can actually watch them. If they're online, you can do the analytics online. You can sort of see where they're going. And then, if you have questions to improve, make those improvements. Yes. Do we have some other question? Oh, that's just chatting. Okay. So with all that, Patty, I guess my answer would have to be somewhere along the lines of, do the least expensive stuff first, just by observing, by talking and looking at what you have. Build on the top of giants. Build on what is already known. Don't ask stuff that's already been answered unless circumstances have changed. If things have changed, don't ask the same stuff over and over and over. Look at where we are now. People have a huge need to know right now. There's a lot of fears and paranoias about recession and about war and about culture and all these things, right? Does that impact commerce? Well, sure. What do we do about it? I don't know if anyone has that answer yet, but we're working on it. But then to go into things like, okay, do we have MPS in place or not? If not, here's what it is. We should do that. I would tend to go for CSAT before I go for MPS, because CSAT is more direct around correcting things that exist now. MPS is a future state that says, yeah, I'm gonna talk good about you, supposed loyalty, right? I would tend to focus on the things I can change now.
I have a question. So for someone who has a background in communications, marketing, what would be your advice for gaining CX experience when your current position has you focusing on other things? Does that make sense? So it's like, how do you make the time in your current role to gain experience in CX, gain experience in research and things like that, while still keeping the current position that you have? Does that make sense? Is that a good question? Do you understand what I'm saying?
It certainly does. And I know Patty pretty well, and She may be able to help answer this too, but because I've never worked for anyone, so I don't really know how to do all the things that have to be done.
Yeah.
But I would tend to think that, there's people that come up to CX from lots of different angles. A lot of them through customer service in call centers, a lot of them through, research is another area, and some through marketing communications. So, it's still a new beast to a lot of us, and we're still trying to learn these things. I would say focus on your own company culture first. What is it? What is the way things are done around there? Because even the best CX effort, if it's not it's not fed to them in the way they're used to eating, they're not going to eat it, right? So if that is in short snippets on a continual basis, then that's one way to sort of not only increase your own knowledge, but learn through sharing. And if you find something good, it could be as simple as a quote. What's a Maya Angelou quote? People always remember how you feel. They may not remember what you said, right? That's a CX quote. Just share that stuff on a weekly basis with your own teams. It could be as simple as that, which is sort of evangelistic, right? Or it could be as more digging in, like, hey guys, we're going to do a study, and these are the areas these are the tools we have, and this is the budget we have, right? So what would you do if you had the answer? I always look at that as well. It's, as far as your own knowledge about this, I mean, CXPA's got tons of knowledge out there. Patty helped write the book of knowledge, so you can go there and see some of her work on that. There's also, not only CXPA, but there's organizations like CX Forums that we have these on a pretty regular basis. Then there's, just reaching out and talking to people. There's not, I don't think anyone that wouldn't take a call. I mean, unless they're just too stuck on themselves. But I mean, heck, pick up the phone. You'd be surprised how many people are just wanting to talk. Patty, do you have something to add to that? I'm sure you do.
I think you did a really great job answering the question, Mark. That's a fun way to say it, answering the question, Mark.
I was going to call my company.
I never thought of that
day.
before. All the time I've known you. Never thought of that. But anyway, I think you did do a really good job of answering her question. And it's like any time else to me that you want to get into something new and different at work, you have to take the initiative and you have to take it under your wing to move forward with it. I put inside the chat a link to Horizon CX. They are someone else that Mark and I both mutually know runs that, and he does a really good program for people that are new to CX called CX Pro. And it is, you can do it and do it self-paced. It's really nice, really simple, relatively inexpensive compared to what else is out there. I took the program a little over a year ago, even though I've been in CX for a few decades, but it is really helpful and I think you'd really enjoy it. So take a look at that. Because I think that would help. And beyond that, I think Mark has done really an amazing job of explaining the rest. And I'm not going to just reiterate what he just said.
Great, thank you. And the good thing is that our organization is adopting CX, but we're right at the beginning of it. And so it's like, how do you, but yeah, thank you for your answers. They were very helpful.
I completely forgot about Carl because we just did the workshop with him. But yeah, he does a great job of fundamentals. Where do you start with all this stuff? So if anyone else here is at that point where you're just now into it, highly encourage you to get in touch with Carl and Horizon CX.
Great, thank you.
I guess we filled up that 90 minutes pretty quickly, huh? Did you guys have a good time?
Yeah, and this is Lisa. I'd just like to echo. I'm just getting into it and was at the meeting yesterday, and I have to say that this is such a group of professionally generous people, I guess is the way to say it. A lot of people have volunteered. Just give me a call. I'm happy to talk to you. So I would echo that in my own personal experience, just from meeting many of these people just yesterday. So.
Awesome. Well, I'm so glad you were there and you get to see a part of this. And I encourage everyone to take more of a, an active role in things. It's tough to put your finger on where you're going to learn and what your learning style is, right? But you just, you never know who's going to share that bit of wisdom that's going to help you solve your problem. that's about it, folks. I really appreciate it. Well, our next one starts at 1 o'clock with Brett Sharp. Really good stuff around the idea of improving the journey through analytics and journey mapping. So he's going to take what I just talked about a little bit further. The way these are designed is start off with fundamentals, then here's all the different data, then here's applying data, and then towards the end of the day, you don't want to miss the session at 3 o'clock, which is all about the first year journey of a CX Pro and how you need to focus on the things that matter. That is at 3 o'clock from 3 to 4:30. The people over at Heart of a Customer have been focused on doing a study on that, talking to first year people, and they would like to find people to talk to as well. So if you haven't participated in that and you would like to, please come at 3 o'clock for that. Now, these are all different registrations, so you got to go, find those registrations on the letter that I sent out to everyone, or you can look on LinkedIn, or you can just hit me and I'll send you the LinkedIn code for it. All right. But they do require registration so we can keep out the Zoom bombers. That's it. Hey, folks, appreciate your time. Have a good one. I'm going to get a cup of coffee and get set up for the next one.
This was great. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. And I'll send out the slides to anyone who wants them.